So the government is thinking about canceling student loans, deleting, erasing, Control-Zing $1.7 trillion worth of debt that affects millions of Americans and graduated students. Now, is this really a good idea? Are there any side effects to this decision if it in fact goes through? Well, we're gonna go over the pros and cons, and I'm gonna show you both perspectives on why we should cancel the student loans, but I'm also going to show you why we should not cancel student loans. And I'm speaking here from someone that was a recipient of number one, student loans, but also someone that benefited from the government freezing interest rates and payments. Because when this took place, my wife and I got an agreement and we said, okay, now this is the time to go full throttle on these student loans. And at the peak of it all, we had about $200K. We paid it all off, and now it feels like you're born again. So the first thing I want to mention here is that personally, I am not opposed to the government holding off on the interest and the payments until this whole pandemic is over. But when we start talking about a student cancellation, that's another subject. So let's go over this quick video here that I found on CNBC, where they give us a summary on how the government is considering canceling student loans.
Don't have to pay any of your federal student loans until September. The White House made the announcement today. It's once again extending the pause through the summer. Student loan payments were supposed to restart next month. They've been frozen through the pandemic. According to the Fed, borrowers have saved nearly $200 billion over the past 2 years.
Wow.
Education Department reports the loan freeze applies to more than 40 million people nationwide. Collectively, they owe $1.6 trillion in student debt. Wow.
Yeah,
President Biden facing a lot of pressure right now from fellow Democrats. Some are urging him to forgive student loans altogether, but the president didn't mention anything about that today.
So this all sounds great and everything, but the question still remains, is this really a good idea? But before we actually get to answer that question, we have to quickly understand how we got into this mess, or we need to understand one of the reasons of how we got into this mess to begin with. Because if you really think about it, university tuition has been increasing for the last couple of decades. So this article is from US News, and it says 20 years of tuition growth at national universities. We're gonna go jump into the data here straight, and it says the charts below show 20 years of tuition changes as reported to US News by the 391 ranked national universities included in the recently released 2022 Best Colleges ranking. So here's the breakdown, what we care about. The average tuition and fees at private national universities have jumped 144%. Out-of-state tuition and fees at public national universities have risen 171. In-state tuition and fees at public national universities have grown the most. You figure that one would be the one that increases the least, huh? And it says increasing 211%. Outrageous, huh? So with this being said, one of the reasons why we are in this mess of a lot of debt, which is understandable, right? Because as college tuition increases, then students and the income from parents and students, when they have jobs, they can't afford and they have to turn many times to student loans, as it was my case. My parents, they did not make enough to help me with my tuition, and I was still working 3 jobs and 4 jobs up to a point, but that still wasn't enough. So the bottom line is, should the government go ahead and cancel, delete, and erase all the student loans? So to answer this question, here, I want to do something fun. And I want to show you 2 perspectives, and I want to let you make your own decision. I'm going to show you, first off, 5 reasons to cancel student loans. I'm going to show you then 5 reasons not to cancel student loans. And I would love for you to tell me in the comments what you think. So the first item that we're going to get into here is 5 reasons to cancel student loans. And it says, in the ongoing debate about a student loan cancellation, each side has made arguments to support their position. The following arguments have been proposed by supporters of wide-scale student loan forgiveness. Okay, so now let's jump into the first reason. It says student loan cancellation will stimulate the economy. It says Senator Elizabeth Warren says that canceling student loans will help stimulate the economy. As Americans are hurting from the COVID-19 pandemic, they are also struggling with $1.7 trillion of student loan debt. By canceling student loans today, like right now, this will help free up money for student loan borrowers to spend in the economy. They could buy a home, I've been trying to buy a home for a while. I'll be waiting for the market to crash. They could spend money with the small businesses and invest in their communities. In aggregate, this will help stimulate the economy and support other economic relief like stimulus checks and unemployment benefits. That's reason number one. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Reason number two, to cancel the student loans. Student loan cancellation would help narrow the racial wealth gap. One reason to support student loan forgiveness is to help student loan borrowers of color who are disproportionately impacted by student loans. Warren and Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer say that student loan cancellation can help close the racial wealth gap. For example, research shows that African American and Latinx, whatever Latinx means, borrowers would substantially improve their financial security and would experience substantial relative wealth gains if their student loans are canceled. Research also shows that the average African American borrower still owes more than 100% of their loan balance even 12 years after college and experience higher rates of default. That's reason number two. What do you think? I would love to know comments. Now, reason number three, student loan cancellation could completely forgive student loans for 15 million borrowers. The latest student loan statistics show that 45 million borrowers collectively owe $1.7 trillion of student loan debt. This includes $7.9 million student loan borrowers who owe less than $5,000 of federal student loans and 15.3 million student loan borrowers who owe less than $10,000 of student loans. President Joe Biden wants to cancel $10,000 of student loans immediately. If Congress cancels $10,000 of student loan debt, then 15.3 million people could have all their federal student loan debt canceled. That's a lot of people. Warren and Schumer want to cancel up to $50,000 of student loans for each borrower. Based on the latest student loan debt statistics, more than 35 million borrowers hold 50 grand or less in federal student loans. Therefore, canceling 50 grand of student loans could wipe out a substantial amount of student loan debt for tens of millions of borrowers, and in some cases, all of their debt. In my case, it would only have been 1/4 of all the damn debt. Okay, now the last two reasons why we should cancel the student loans. Student loan cancellation would help you start your life without a student loan. How about if you get all your student loans canceled and then you go back to school again? And then you get into more debt. Just playing devil's advocate. Student loan debt is now the second highest form of consumer debt. If borrowers could have some or all of their student loans forgiven, they could start life after college without the crushing impact of student loans. This could lead to increased saving for retirement, increased geographic and job mobility, increased small business formation, higher family formation, and higher marriage rates. Student loan forgiveness is also a mental health issue. For example, higher student loan debt is associated with anxiety and depression, which could be reduced if there's a wide scale student loan cancellation. Now, here's something that I can relate to specifically, because when you have a ton of debt, that weighs on your shoulders a lot. And that's the reason why my wife and I actually got off our butts and started focusing solely on paying off the student loans, because we just felt the weight on our shoulders and we were thinking, okay, we need to get rid of this thing. Okay, so the last reason why student loans should be canceled here, according to the source, is student loan cancellation would help regular people. Supporters of student loans cancellation say that Congress has bailed out corporations and given breaks to billionaires. Now, they say it's time to help regular Americans. Student loan cancellation would help student loan borrowers get a similar type of financial relief afforded to the country's elite. College has become a stepping stone to higher income and financial freedom. Supporters say they shouldn't have to go into substantial debt they can't pay off simply to participate in the economy. While not a panacea to the cost of higher education, student loan cancellation can help remove this roadblock so that more people have a shot to live the American dream. So the 5 reasons to cancel the student loan debt, here we have summary. Number 1, student loan cancellation will help stimulate the economy. Number 2, it will help narrow the racial wealth gap. Number 3, could completely forgive student loans for 15 million borrowers. Number 4, help you start your life without student loans, unless you go back to school and get more student loans. And then the 5th one would help regular people other than elites and corporations. Okay, so now that we have an idea on why student loans should be canceled, here we're gonna go to the same source and we're gonna say, hey, what are some reasons why student loans should not be canceled? And this article was written in 2020, but the reasons still remain relevant. So let's jump right into them. And number one, it says, canceling student loans for everyone excludes 200 plus million people. There are approximately 250 million adults in the US. Of this total, only 45 million are student loan borrowers. While that number is significant, it's less than 20% of the total adult population. Forgiving the student loan debt certainly would benefit these individuals. However, more than 200 million adult Americans no longer have or never had student loan debt. Is it fair to cancel the student loans for this subsection of the population while the majority of the population who may face other important financial challenges do not receive commensurate financial support? Is it fair? Many federal taxpayers may not want to subsidize the cost of a student loans debt cancellation, which could cost nearly $400 billion while they'll receive no financial benefit. It's a good point. First good point. Now, let's jump onto the second one. It says, canceling student loans invariably benefits wealthier Americans with graduate degrees. I didn't think of that, actually. It says here, who benefits from student loan forgiveness? Graduate school debt accounts for more than 40% of all outstanding student loan debt. This includes student loans for medical school, that's really expensive, dental school, expensive, business school, and law school. While each of those degrees can cost hundreds of thousands of dollars in tuition, the student loan borrowers who hold these degrees tend to earn significantly higher income. This is not to say that some borrowers with graduate degrees do not struggle with student loan repayment. Many do, and not all student loan borrowers with graduate degrees earn significant income. That said, canceling student loans for all student loan borrowers would mean that high-income borrowers receive student loan forgiveness even if they can afford their student loan payments. So if you're basically giving a student loan forgiveness to a doctor that's making $200,000 to $300,000 a year, is that fair? I don't think so, right? If you can afford it, then you should pay it. Therefore, the student loan forgiveness would not be targeted optimally to student loan borrowers with low income, who didn't attend college or who are unemployed, for example. What do you think so far? Let me know in the comments. I would love to know. Now, the third reason why student loans should not be canceled. It says here, stimulus checks and unemployment benefits may be better ways to stimulate the economy. Some have argued that student loan forgiveness is a smart policy to stimulate the economy. However, research shows that stimulus checks and unemployment benefits are better ways to stimulate the economy. For example, the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget says that canceling $1.6 trillion of student loan debt would produce only $90 billion in available cash to spend in 2021. So this was 1 year ago, and only $450 billion over the next 5 years. Why? The reason is that $10,000 of student loans forgiveness does not equate to giving every borrower $10,000 in cash. Rather, for the student loan debt cancellation, borrowers save an amount of cash equal to the principal and interest payments, which could result in several $100s in savings per month on average, for example. If Congress wants to stimulate the economy, Congress would be better off giving stimulus checks to every American and encouraging them to spend it. Now, the fourth reason here, canceling student loans is unfair to borrowers who paid off the student loans. If there is a student loan cancellation, it would benefit only borrowers who hold student loans on the day student loan would be canceled. That means if you paid off student loans in full the day before, you would be out of luck. That's crazy. So imagine you pay off all your student loans today, and then tomorrow the government just forgives everyone's student loans. What happens with a long, arduous journey and all the money that you gave back? Many student loan borrowers paid off student loans by working multiple jobs, foregoing buying a home, or delaying other important life decisions. Here's one example, me. Will these borrowers who also may have a struggle receive any commensurable compensation? Congress could consider a reasonable look-back period to account for student loan borrowers who paid off student loans during a specific period prior to any potential student loan cancellation. That's a good idea. Okay, now the last reason canceling student loans doesn't address the high cost of education. Absolutely, and this is something that's being in the back of my mind. Canceling student loans could provide some immediate relief to current student loan borrowers. However, the day after student loans are canceled, student students will continue to borrow tens of thousands of dollars to fund their education. While a college or graduate degree generally leads to higher earnings, student loan debt cancellation does not address the underlying issue, the cost of higher education. Congress may be more impactful by focusing on ways to make college and graduate school more affordable. So there you go, guys. We just went over 5 reasons why we should cancel student loans, 5 reasons not to cancel student loans. What do you think after being exposed to these 2 perspectives? I would love to know. Personally, because of my personal experience, and my wife and I are 2 people who got into a lot of student loans, a lot of doo-doo, but we also worked really hard to get out of all the doo-doo and dig ourselves out. That was a very long, arduous, and difficult process, and that delayed a lot of our life decisions. And I think it would be unfair, and I'm not just speaking for me, but I think there's a lot of people who worked just as hard, if not even harder, than we did, who would also have loved to have their student loans paid off. It would be a disservice to all the people who went through the hard work to pay off their student loans. And not to mention, we're not really addressing the problem, right? Because the day that the government cancels student loans, if they do, then the next day, people are just going to keep borrowing money. So you're not really addressing the root cause, you're just addressing the symptom, which is canceling the debt. But the root cause is increasing college tuition prices. And not to mention, like, books. Books are crazy expensive too, man. So why don't we put a cap on how expensive some college textbooks are? So with all this being said, I would love to know what you think, and let me know in the comments. Like this video if you enjoy this video. If you like these types of videos, subscribe to the channel. And with all that being said, Alex out.